are determined, Mr. Speaker, to fight for Ghana. The road to Ghana beyond aid, Mr. Speaker, will require a spirit of courage, love, and self-discipline. Indeed, President Akufo-Addo's government remains resolute in upholding the common good and shared participation in Ghana's prosperity. Mr. Speaker, Ghana should resonate among all of us. Ghana First should resonate among all of us as one people with a common destiny. Mr. Speaker, the soundness of our financial system is essential for achieving macroeconomic stability and growth. In addition, for providing substantial employment, banks, specialized deposit-taking institutions, and fund management companies as providers of credit, liquidity, and investment play a critical role in the effective functioning of our economy. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana's bold and heroic measures over the past 2 years to clean up the banking and SDI sectors involve the revocation of licenses of 9 universal banks, 347 microfinance companies, of which 155 had already ceased operation, and 39 microcredit companies, money lenders, 10 of which had already ceased operation. These massive failures, Mr. Speaker, brought about by several years of an unsustainable licensing regime which lowered standards for entry into the banking and SDI sectors, as well as poor supervision and enforcement from the central bank. This was compounded by poor corporate governance and risk management practices, family and friends managing and influencing banks, abuse of related party relations, and unsustainable business models. Many of these institutions, Mr. Speaker, have denied depositors access to their deposits for a long period of time, creating liquidity challenges in the financial system, resulting in a high incidence of credit defaults in the system. The threats posed to the stability of the financial system and the economy at large were enormous, justifying the bold actions taken by the governor and the Bank of Ghana. The government has demonstrated its commitment to providing timely relief to depositors whose funds were at risk as a result of the demise of the defunct banks and SDIs. The government, through a purchase and assumption program, facilitated GCB's consolidation of 2 banks. The government then set up the Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited and capitalized it with $450 million to ensure that no depositor lost their deposit. The government of Ghana has had to issue bonds to the tune of $11.2 billion to cover the cost of the financial sector resolution and protect depositors. In addition, Mr. Speaker, government of Ghana had provided an amount of $925 million in cash to cover the small depositors of the 386 microfinance institutions, bringing the total cost to $12.125 billion. Mr. Speaker, the government's actions have restored some confidence in the banking sector. Through the government's interventions, significant deposits held by, Mr. Speaker, some 2,655,100 depositors, 1.5 million bank depositors, and 1.12 microfinance depositors have been saved, and over 3,000 jobs have also been preserved. The Bank of Ghana's directive to banks to increase the minimum capital paid up of $400 million by 31st December 2018 has been successful. This injected fresh capital of some $4.2 billion into the banks. The Ghana Amalgamated Trust intervention is also expected to lead to strong intervention for an indigenous Ghanaian presence in the banking sector. Mr. Speaker, it is gratifying to note that these regulatory and policy measures undertaken to clean up the financial sector have already begun to bear fruit. Some have suggested that instead of revoking the licenses of the now defunct institutions, the Bank of Ghana should have kept them going somehow. Some have even said that the previous regime was the good doctor that allowed these zombie institutions to continue, albeit in their comatose state, and will not do intensive and intrusive surgery, while the current administration is a bad doctor that came in to kill or collapse them. However, first of all, at the state at which the current administration found the banking and SDI sector, it was too late to subject the already comatose financial institution, and intensive and intrusive surgery was required for the many walking dead. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the failure of these institutions was caused primarily by poor governance, lax oversight by boards of directors and the Banking Supervision Division, unlawful behavior of shareholders and related and connected parties who had plundered these banks' deposits and resources. Thirdly, continuing to support these failing institutions would have been creating a moral hazard for bank shareholders, directors, and managers whose actions or inactions would have been rewarded by the taxpayer. By revoking the licenses of these insolvent institutions, the Bank of Ghana was acting according to its legal imperative and did so in a manner that preserved depositors' funds, saved a significant amount of jobs. And let me be very clear here, Mr. Speaker. We were at the precipice of a major fiscal meltdown, and let no one indulge in self-serving oratory. The end cost, Mr. Speaker, may be anywhere from US $3 to $4 billion equivalent, a poison pill from the previous government that we are having to clean up. Mr. Speaker, the degradation of the defined institutions is progressing, albeit with impediments from persons whose unlawful actions were associated with the failure of these institutions, having the audacity to seek legal cover. The government financial interventions in the cleanup exercise were only a stopgap measure necessary to help mitigate the socioeconomic impacts of the failure of the relevant financial institutions. It is imperative that we all support the recovery of assets from persons who misappropriated or borrowed funds from these institutions and have failed or refused to pay back in order that liabilities left behind can be settled. To the extent of any recoveries made by the receivers of these institutions, government expects to recoup these amounts that are spent so far to provide relief to depositors. This will go a long way, Mr. Speaker, to enable government finance other priorities for our socio-economic needs. Mr. Speaker, government continues to support effective regulation of the financial sector. We are confident the Financial Stability Council, recently established and inaugurated by His Excellency the President, will work assiduously to promote a resilient financial system that supports our economic growth agenda. We are also fully committed to supporting the organization of the Ghana Deposit Protection Scheme in September 2019 to further protect the interests of depositors. Mr. Speaker, as announced in the 2018 budget, the government has started the National Housing and Mortgage Finance Initiative. The objective of this initiative, Decent Homes, Better Life, is to provide quality housing to all citizens, starting with public and civil servants. Two of the schemes under the initiative, National Housing and Mortgage Scheme and Affordable Housing Real Estate Trust, have commenced. Mr. Speaker, under the NHMS, funds have been released to three participating banks, GCB Bank, Stanbic, and Republic Bank, to commence the pilot phase of the Housing and Mortgage Program. The NHMS, in collaboration with the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations, is building a pipeline of potential home owners to participate in the scheme. Mr. Speaker, in line with the President's vision encapsulated in the Coordinated Program of Economic and Social Development and the Medium-Term Development Plan Agenda for Jobs, Creating Prosperity and Equal Opportunity for All Ghanaians, government is pursuing various policy interventions and flagship programs to pave the way for accelerated socio-economic transformation of this country. These are consistent with Ghana Beyond Aid agenda, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and the African Agenda 2063. The priority programs are intended to be catalysts for building a strong economy for stimulating job creation. Mr. Speaker, I would like to highlight a few of these. Agriculture modernization. Mr. Speaker, the government's agriculture modernization program aims at ensuring reliable production of agricultural produce, which will be the basis of our industrialization, job creation, and export drive, as well as help reduce the amount of foreign exchange spent on imports. These are being delivered through our flagship initiatives, Planting for Food and Jobs program, the Rearing for Foods and Jobs program, and Planting for Exports and Rural Development, among others. Mr. Speaker, since the onset of the Planting for Food and Jobs program in 2017, domestic food production has increased significantly. Maize yields increased by 72%, rice by 24%, and soybean by 39%, and sorghum by 100%. Mr. Speaker, as of June 2019, under the fertilizer and seed subsidy component of the program, about 40% of targeted farmers have been covered, comprising only farmers in the southern sector, since the northern sector planting season is yet to start. Construction of 30 warehouses with a capacity of 1,000 metric tons each are underway across the country to provide storage facilities and reduce post-harvest losses. As at the end of June, 5 warehouses have been completed at Kwame Danso, Bole, Yagba, Joji, and Chindiri. Mr. Speaker, in this year, His Excellency the President launched the Rearing for Food and Jobs program. To date, a total of 53,500 livestock have been distributed to some beneficiary farmers. With regard to...
Order, honorable members, background noise.
With regard to the management of fall armyworm infestation as of May 2019, a total farm area of 34,396 hectares was sprayed and recovered. Mr. Speaker, the greenhouse village of Danwenya has trained a total of 231 students. The new facility at Akumadan has been completed, with training scheduled to start in the third quarter of the year. The Bourgeoisie greenhouse will be completed by year end. Under the first phase of the project, each facility, Mr. Speaker, will produce 325,200 kilograms of assorted vegetables, valued at over 6.4 million cedars. The ministry, Mr. Speaker, completed the Gua and Piriri dams, making available 36 hectares of irrigable land for cropping. Mr. Speaker, government is aggressively pursuing its industrialization agenda with the objective of widening the opportunities for job creation and expanding the economy through accelerated technology based on manufacturing and aggressive export promotion. Mr. Speaker, the 1D1F initiative was designed to support the private sector to establish at least one industrial enterprise in every district. Currently, Mr. Speaker, 181 projects are at various stages of implementation spread over 110 districts across the 16 regions of the country. As of mid-year, 57 projects were in operation, providing 10,753 direct jobs and 43,000 indirect jobs. A total of 430 million, Mr. Speaker, has been mobilized from local financial institutions to support the program. Further, government has sourced external funding and credit lines in the sum of $700 million to address access to financing challenges. Exit banks of $300 million from the U.S. Bank will help accelerate 1D1F programs. Mr. Speaker, the private sector needed to collaborate with us. A number of modern industrial parks and special economic zones are being promoted. The following parks are currently under development. The Dawa Industrial Park at Dawa on the Accra Flower Highway currently has 2,000 acres fully developed out of 22,000 acres available land. West Park Industrial Estate at Shama in the Western region is constructing on-site infrastructure for his 400-acre industrial park. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation successfully launched a 3-round investor engagement process in March 2019. Round 1 of the investor engagement, covering mining, refining, melting, and power, was concluded, and 16 firms were shortlisted to progress to Round 2, which will be launched in August. The investor engagement will be completed by year-end. Mr. Speaker, government seeks to ensure rapid expansion of infrastructure in an integrated manner in order to transform the economic and social lives of Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, in the 2019 budget statement and economic policy, government made a commitment to undertake massive infrastructure development from a variety of funding sources. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to announce that 4 out of 10 projects to benefit from the first phase of the final hydro facility has commenced. His Excellency the President cut the sword for the Tamale interchange on 10th April 2019. Mr. Speaker, this past weekend, the Tamale interchange project is in full operation. The other 3 projects, namely Western Region and Cape Coast Inner City Roads, selected feeder roads in Ashanti, Western, and the Hohoi, Jasikan, Dode, Pepase, are the design phase. The second phase of the Sino Hydro project is at the planning stage. An additional 1,300 kilometers of road, 3 interchanges, and 69 steel bridges are under consideration for implementation. Mr. Speaker, the people of the Upper East region will be happy to learn that financing arrangements have been completed for the restart of the Bolgatanga-Boku-Pomakrom Road in a few weeks. Mr. Speaker, in order to improve the road conditions and protect lives and properties across the country, government has programmed a number of projects to commence in the course of this year. The projects include Osiem Begro Road, Waben Abomosu Esum Road, Awian Kwanta Obuasi Road, Mankon Kofiasi Road, Wabi Ekropon Town Roads, Insuta Beposu Road, Salaga Bimbela, Wada Sutra Brom, Adankroma Kede New Abrim, Atronim Mem, Esuom Subi Kede, Ekropon Prampesi Adankrono, Odumasi Adenta Bedu, Akrodia Sarayasu, Idiako Kasapim Kam 15, Tepaboma, Kofi Krom, Obuasi Town Roads, New Domai, Yahuam Roads, Menjibwe, Sampa Jinin, Doma Town, Atebubu Kwame Danso, Kintampo Abiasi Prang, Atebubu Cheso Praso Asen, Swedro Bojoase, Ayamfuri Jachikrom, New Abrem Fuesikuma, Suhum Asama Kesi Town, Mukuru, Narerogo, Wolugo, Prema Mesia, Zapsugo, Napela, Bimbela, Salaga, Pambajo. Mr. Speaker, Apostle Junction, Boni Valley, Ushiego, Banda, Nalarego. Mr. Speaker, Sefi, Dinamaso, Isrowa, Asawanaso, Kojina, Esakron, and Mr. Speaker, Bibiani, and Awaso Town Roads. Mr. Speaker, for the 2018-2019 crop year, an amount of 1.3 billion was raised in the syndicated loan market at a margin of LIBOR plus 60 basis points. This loan was raised to fund cocoa purchasing operations and support other key activities in the cocoa sector. Cocoa Port repaid the 1.3 billion syndicated loan ahead of schedule in July 2019. This is due to prudent financial management. For the 2019-2020 season, an amount of 1.3 billion will be syndicated by Cocoa Board for cocoa purchasing operations. Mr. Speaker, the current world cocoa price still remains low since the downward trend experienced in the 2017-2018 year. As a result of the low world market price, cocoa revenues continue to diminish to a level that government had to forfeit its share of the FOB price in export duty payments in the second year running. This is part of government's efforts to protect our cocoa farmers from market price volatility and income uncertainties. Government has, however, kept faith with our cherished cocoa farmers by maintaining the farm gate price at Ghana cedi 7,600 per ton. This is meant to ensure that no loss of income to the cocoa farmer arises due to the low international price of cocoa. During the 2017-2018 season, Cocoa Board purchased 904,000 metric tons of cocoa. For the 2018-2019 season, which is expected to close at the end of September 2019, a crop size of over 900,000 tons was targeted. The current achieved crop size is 794,841 tons, representing 88.32% of the forecast. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the annual syndicated loan of 1.3 billion, Cocoa Board has initiated processes with the African Development Bank to raise additional $600 million 7-year long-term facility for the implementation of the productivity enhancement programs and other initiatives. The programs include hand pollination, pruning of cocoa farms, rehabilitation of disease and overage farms, irrigation in dry seasons, and farmer databases. The loan was at the instance of the joint request made by the President of the Republic of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to the AFDB to support the revamping of the cocoa industry in the two countries and put in strategies to take control of the price of cocoa on the international market. Mr. Speaker, the world market price of cocoa dropped from 2,950 tons in 2016 to an average of 2,080 tons in 2017, representing about 30% reduction. Although government continues to pay farmers 7,600 cedis a ton, the world market price has remained low for the past 3 years. In the face of this challenge, Mr. Speaker, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, represented by Cocoa Board and Conseil du Café Cacao, the two leading producers of cocoa beans, 65% of world production, decided to engage buyers of cocoa to accept a premium of $400 per ton above the terminal market price to support the income of our cherished farmers. Mr. Speaker, after extensive stakeholder consultation and engagement, the buyers have accepted to pay the $400 per ton, which is Christian livelihood income differential for Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire cocoa beans. We wish to say that this is the first of its kind in the history of cocoa sales in the world, and it's a major achievement for the government, an indication of the government's indication to seek a fair share of the multi-billion-dollar cocoa value chain market. Mr. Speaker, we should not lose sight of the fact that the cocoa industry directly supports about 800,000 farmer families, and such a major policy would improve significantly the living standards of majority of Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, works has resumed on cocoa roads involving upgrading routine and periodic maintenance activities of 1,362 kilometers of trunk roads, 1,389 kilometers of feeder roads, and 183 of urban roads. The roads, Mr. Speaker, include Obuasi Junction, Dunkwa Yamfuri, Have Hohoi Road, Have Josikan Road, Venchima Junction, Adwafu Road, Sepirioso Akontombra Road, Cape Coast Tresuprasu Road, and access road to Kakum National Park. Further, 450 feeder roads and 20 trunk roads covering 4,500 kilometers and 500 kilometers respectively have been programmed by Cocoa Board and the Ministry of Roads and Highways for construction, upgrading, rehabilitation, and routine maintenance. Mr. Speaker, they include Odumase Patri Bada Road, Inkrofo Inkwanta Agrave, Akim Manso Osnase, Kwehun Saba Akwase, Akrodie, Asimfusu, Sankore Cocoa Station, Dapa, Asato, Takokoi, Abrokwa, Konongo, Ankasa, Minankwanta, Wasakropong, Nsawari, Asuweni, Shama, Guera, Ahumkam, Atieku, Odobeng. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the railway sector continues in its quest to increase railway infrastructure in this country. In this regard, government has initiated several projects in the railway sector. The Ghana Railway Company has completed the rehabilitation of the 30-kilometer narrow gauge railway line from Accra to Tema, which has enabled the restoration of passenger rail service to the corridor. The Achimota to Nsawam line has also been rehabilitated, and test runs have commenced in anticipation for the regions of the suburban commuter rail service from Accra to Nsawam. Mr. Speaker, the construction of the 22-kilometer standard gauge Kojo-Kuro-Manso section of the Western Rail is being undertaken in 2 phases. Mr. Speaker, significant progress has been made in the Tama-Impakadan rail line. The status of the project currently stands at about 45% and is expected to be 58% complete by the end of 2019. The scope of the project has been revised to include a major railway bridge across the Volta Lake between Senchi and enters the Volta region at Adome. Mr. Speaker, the old railway training school and 2 workshops located at Sikado have received major refurbishment and facelift. The training school is to be upgraded and equipped with modern teaching and learning facilities to enhance capacity building and skills. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to announce that His Excellency the President has cut the sword for the construction of the Axim and Mori fish landing sites. Work on the remaining fish landing sites along the coastal stretch has commenced. These are, Mr. Speaker, Jamestown, Diskoff, Elmina, Mumford, Winneba, Senyebreku, Keta, Gomuafete, and Teshi. Mr. Speaker, our infrastructure for poverty eradication project continues. Our FDAM projects are continuing. 50 prefabricated warehouses have been constructed. 1,000 community mechanized solar-powered water system will be completed in September, and the construction of 50 rural markets and 2 mechan houses to commence before year end. Mr. Speaker, the Zongo Development Fund seeks, among others, to improve the quality of life in Zongo areas and the inner cities through the provision of critical infrastructure, education, and training. Mr. Speaker, a number of projects are ongoing: construction of water systems, access roads, alleyways, Bailey bridges, schools, and institutional toilets. In addition, Mr. Speaker, infrastructure in the communities, 250 youth in Accra and Kumasi have benefited from this, and 500 women have been trained in entrepreneurship and business development under the Zongo Cuisine Promotion Program. Mr. Speaker, with regards to sanitation and water, the President's vision of making Accra the cleanest city in Africa, and by extension to all the regions, it's going to be executed. Mr. Speaker, to facilitate the proper disposal of solid waste, 2,000 public litter bins are being placed at vantage points in all of Accra, and 3,000 additional to other places. Mr. Speaker, Greater Accra Metropolitan Project, 22,500 household toilets, benefiting 180,000 low-income beneficiaries, and 200,000 school pupils have been completed. The construction of high-capacity storm drains at Kenichi Fertile to address the perennial flooding of the area is also ongoing. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the National Entrepreneurship Innovation Program seeks to improve the entrepreneurial capacity of Ghanaians, particularly the youth, in order to create jobs and also develop an innovative business environment for socio-economic development. Mr. Speaker, under the Green Business Initiative, 75 greenhouses have been built for young entrepreneurs, Mr. Speaker, and 30,000 university students are participating in entrepreneurship clubs across the country. With regards to the Mascot progress, Mr. Speaker, the Mascot loan recovery rate has improved from 22% in 2016 to 65%, and further funds are being found for them. Mr. Speaker, the free SHF program is currently in its second year of implementation. A total of 432,791 first-year students were enrolled for the 2018-2019 academic year, representing a 19.5% increase over the previous year's figure of 362,108. This brings the total number of beneficiaries, Mr. Speaker, to 794,899 since the inception of the free SHF program. In September 2019, the third cohort of the senior high school students will be enrolled, Mr. Speaker, making senior high school free for all for the first time in our history. Mr. Speaker, government continues to implement the programs to ensure Ghana achieves universal health coverage, the extension of specialized outreach services to the community levels. Mr. Speaker, due to deliberate government action to improve human resource base in the health sector, the nurse-to-patient ratio in the country has reached 1 to 839, which is superior to the WHO benchmark of 1 to 1,000. Government has also since 2017 restored the nursing training allowance. The first and quarter allowances for 2019 were paid to a total of 51,000 trainees. Mr. Speaker, the rehabilitation and upgrading of the Tamale Teaching Hospital Project Phase 2 was completed and commissioned in April 2019. The construction and equipping of 5 polyclinics in the Greater Accra region at Adentan, Ashiaman, Botino, Oduman, and Sege was also completed and commissioned in 2019. A number of projects in this sector are also ongoing. Mr. Speaker, under the LEAP program, a total of 330,438 households are receiving LEAP grants. This is an increase over the 213,044 households reported in the 2019 budget, representing a percentage increase of 35%. Currently, Mr. Speaker, the program pays grants to the beneficiaries bi-monthly as follows. A 1-member household is 64 cedis, 2-member household is 76 cedis, a 3-member household is 88 cedis, and 4-member household is 106 cedis. Mr. Speaker, currently, the school feeding program has increased from 1.6 million in 2016 to 2.6 million pupils in 8,676 primary schools with 1 meal every school-going day. Mr. Speaker, in order to improve the effectiveness and enhance the management of the program, financial and operational controls are being strengthened to reduce waste and improve linkages to the local market. Mr. Speaker, 2020 marks the 10th year since the last census in Ghana, and GSS will commence preparatory work for mapping out enumeration areas in 130 out of the 260 districts in the country. Following the exercise, a total of 21,590 out of the 37,000 enumeration area maps have been updated. The census mapping exercise is expected to be completed by September 2019. Mr. Speaker, the Electoral Commission has completed the limited registration exercise as part of the arrangements for the revision of the voter register for 2020 elections. This will pave the way for exhibition of the voters register and nomination of candidates. In order to ensure the integrity of the electoral process, the Commission is working towards deployment of a modernized biometric registration and verification solution. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana card registration exercise commenced with institutional registration and enrollment in June 2018 to March 2019. The mass registration exercise, which started in Accra in April 2019, has so far enrolled, Mr. Speaker, 1,793,207 Ghanaians. A total of 1,195,415 cards have been printed as at the end of June 2019. Mr. Speaker, on 23 September 2017, Ghana successfully defended its maritime boundary dispute with Côte d'Ivoire when the ITLOS ruled in favor of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Defense will begin the construction of a modern forward operating base in Takoradi to enhance maritime security in the western corridor of the country. This post part of government's broader security and will afford the Ghana Armed Forces the ability to protect offshore oil assets, prevent and combat pirate activities, narcotic traffic, and other high-sea crimes. Mr. Speaker, the creation of an optimistic, self-confident, and prosperous nation, as articulated in the President's Coordinated Program for Economic and Social Development, is becoming a reality to the citizens of our dear country. We are indeed moving Ghana beyond aid. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the 2019 budget is on course. We are ready to take on board the third cohort of free SHS students in September 2019. We have started paying contractors who have certificates valued up to 500,000 cedis and plan to clear these by the end of the year. In keeping with our promise, the referendum to decide on the election of MMDCs will come up in December 2019. We have issued a number of commencement approvals for work to begin on a number of roads, drains, fish landing sites, and housing projects. The relevant ministries and development authorities are expected to complete procurement processes and award contracts for work to begin on all projects for the IPEP programs by October 2019. These programs will generate critical economic activities, provide job opportunities, and improve income for masons, carpenters, food vendors, roads, and general contractors. We have made a significant impact in reducing poverty, Mr. Speaker, bridging inequality gaps, providing adequate and accessible quality education, improving healthcare, providing affordable housing, promoting a vibrant agriculture sector, and improving food security, ensuring robust security measures, and revitalizing our industries, among others. These priority programs further underscore, Mr. Speaker, government's commitment towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. As part of government's efforts to address the need for improvement in rural roads, government in the coming weeks, Mr. Speaker, government in the coming weeks will set up a committee which would include officers of the 48th Engineers Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces to spearhead a new national effort of mobilizing local authorities to construct passable critical feeder roads, related drainage and bridges across the country. Local authorities will be supported to urgently deploy road equipment by assisting with the repairs of any broken down equipment, providing fuel or renting necessary equipment. We'll work with the ministers for local government and rural development, roads and highways, and the social development initiative to explore all available financing options within the budget. Mr. Speaker, let me once again take the opportunity to thank you for the cordial working relationship we have had We have no doubt that the achievement made from the beginning of the year will continue to be felt in the ensuing months as we work steadily and tirelessly towards building a Ghana that is truly beyond aid. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to tackle the challenges with boldness, and with the good Lord on our side, we remain optimistic, assured, and rooted in our resolve to maintain economic stability. We will pursue the initiatives and programs of President Nana Akufo-Addo's led government, which are steadily transforming our nation and creating jobs and shared prosperity for all Ghanaians. Our plans and programs, as outlined in the 2019 budget, are deliberately designed, Mr. Speaker, to build a stronger and better connected country where no community will be left out in the push for sustainable progress in the fastest track possible. We have restored the economy. Even more manifestly, we have restored the integrity of the Ghanaian economy. Just like we did over a decade ago. In the words of the latest IMF report, Ghana's recovery economy is truly on the mend. We are no longer in the IMF program that the previous government surrendered to in 2015, not even 4 years after Ghana became an oil-rich country. But the future, Mr. Speaker, is positive. We have discovered oil just like we did 12 years ago, except then we discovered oil at the tail end of the NPP's second consecutive term in office. This is only the first step. Mr. Speaker, this is the government for business, big or small. We are transforming agriculture, and we are transforming industry, and we are building the financial base to fuel that rise. In all humility, Mr. Speaker, the kind of transformation we are seeing today has never been done deliberately on this scale since independence. Our policies are leading to the establishment of factories on a scale never experienced and witnessed in the history of our republic. Mr. Speaker, permit me to stress this point. This is a government for the poor. This is also the government for the masses. We may not stand on rooftops and beat the propaganda drums high and loud. We prefer to allow our actions to speak. We are feeding school children, Mr. Speaker. We are giving them free education. We are expanding the LEAP social welfare cash to many more households. We have revived the national health insurance that we introduced. We have increased social benefits to the physical challenge. We do so, Mr. Speaker, not because we claim to be social democrats, no. We do so because we believe in the principle of empowering the greatest number of people for the greater good. We believe that every Ghanaian has the potential to represent a nation, just as we are in this chamber and have been blessed to do so, and all should be blessed to do so. Mr. Speaker, as I approach the conclusion, I want to make the case that Ghana is in a much better shape than it was when we took office 31 months ago. Growth is higher, banks are stronger, education is funding at an all-time record high, health funding is also at a record high, the GEP fund is more robust, more police are on our streets today than ever before, they are better equipped. We will deliver on the bauxite, we will deliver on the policy to build a petrochemical industry, we will support more factories to be built, more farms to be tilled, more doctors and nurses to care for us, more teachers to be attracted to the classrooms, more media houses to be free to contribute responsibly towards this all-important accelerated development journey, more partnership with labor and employers, more decent salaries. Our challenges may be many, but our opportunities are even more. The future is exciting. Let us build, even if we disagree on who the foreman may be. We are building now. a better future for ourselves, and more so for our children. Let us continue to believe in Ghana. Let us, Mr. Speaker, believe in ourselves. Let us have the courage to be proud about what we are capable of achieving. Be positive, think positive, act patriotic, let's stand firm. Hard work and integrity should be our mantra, Mr. Speaker. We as a speaker, the proverbial parable of the weeds, should not be caught asleep for the enemy to plant weeds among the wheat. Mr. Speaker, the government of President Akufo-Addo will be awake, vigilant, and uncompromising in its drive to transform our economy to a Ghana beyond aid. We are, Mr. Speaker, inspired by J.B. Dankwa when he says in his account doctrine of God that the Spirit of God is abroad, even in the Gold Coast. We are indeed at this year a chosen people, and Isaiah assures us that those who trust in the Lord will find renewed strength. But Mr. Speaker, we must endure and enforce these tenets of a Ghana beyond aid. Mr. Speaker, we are resolved to pledge to embrace attitudinal change so that a Ghana beyond aid can be achieved. The 11 fundamental values of patriotism, honesty in dealing with each other, respect for each other, discipline, volunteerism, self-reliance, wise and efficient use of Ghana's resources, transparency and accountability, equal opportunity for all, strong support for the private sector, collaboration among social partners, particularly labor, business, and government for economic development must prevail. Mr. Speaker, a new Ghana does beckon, the Ghana beyond aid, a Ghana that pays only for the energy it uses, a Ghana that receives full value for its cocoa, a Ghana that is a hub for continental free trade, a Ghana whose infrastructure is well standard, and a Ghana whose children are skilled and working. A patriotic, Mr. Ghana, and patriotic, Mr. Speaker, and spiritual Ghana who will put the Republic first. It is then, Mr. Speaker, that we, our country, will soar high on the wings like eagles and run and not grow weary and walk and not be faint, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, consistent with Article 179, Section 8 of the 1992 Constitution and Standing Order 143 of this august House, I beg to move that this House consider and approve an amount of 6,370,355,925.82 Ghana cedis as supplementary estimates to original appropriation of 78,771,833,602.82 Ghana cedis to bring the revised total appropriation to 85,142,189,527.94 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, I so move. Thank you, and God bless us all.